Good evening. Thank you for joining the Copper Rays Solar Public Information Forum. We've seen a number of people come in. I'm sure they're going to get started flowing here quickly, but let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is go over the agenda and the meeting format. So you should see the agenda on your screen. So first I want to mention that this meeting will go from 6 to 8 p.m. We will leave it open the entire time, even if we close out a little bit earlier, but we will keep it open until 8 p.m. I do want to go through the agenda so everyone understands what we're doing tonight and the meeting format. First, the BLM field manager will provide an introduction for the meeting. Second, we'll have a presentation about the project and the BLM process. Next, we'll have a question and answer section, as well as a public input section. I'll go ahead and explain that in a few slides, and we'll get to that after the presentation. And then we'll close out the meeting. So right now, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the BLM field manager, Nicholas.
Thank you, Kenda. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicholas Pay. I'm the field manager for the Bureau of Land Management's Pahrump Field Office in the Southern Nevada District. I want to thank each of you for attending tonight's meeting. Tonight's meeting is a series of meetings to gather information from local, state, federal, and tribal governments, as well as general citizens in the area that would be affected by the proposed Copper Rays solar project. Tonight's meeting focuses on you as public land users. The information gathered during these meetings will be used as we evaluate the appropriateness of this application. Please keep in mind that our regulations require that we review each application submitted to the BLM and evaluate each application on its own merit. Tonight's meeting is specifically for the purpose of evaluating the application for the proposed Copper Rays solar project. As you develop your thoughts and concerns that you would like to share, I respectfully ask that you focus your comments at this time on the proposed Copper Rays solar project. There will be opportunities for you to comment on the other projects at other times. As we begin, I would like to introduce a few individuals who will be leading tonight's meeting. First is Whitney Worthland. The BLM project manager assigned to this project will be presenting the information on the project and where we are with the process. And second is Kenda Polio, who you've already heard from. She is the principal for KP Environmental, and she will be moderating the question and answer session, as well as the public input session. You'll see here a list of the BLM specialists working behind the scenes. This team has been working hard to develop the content for this meeting and will continue to work behind the scenes to keep this meeting productive and to answer your questions. I want to publicly thank this team and all the others working on this project, all their hard work for getting all these meetings set up and for all the work that they continue to do during and after this meeting. With that, I will turn it back to Kenda.
Thank you. Okay, as I mentioned, I'll go ahead and go over the question and answer portion as well as the public input portion, just so everyone kind of understands what we're going to do, and then we'll talk about it again after the presentation. But written questions can be submitted at any time during the meeting. So as you start to think of them, you can start submitting them now. You can submit them in writing in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please submit only one question at a time so we can ensure that we answer each and every question that you ask. We will be responding in writing to some and verbally to others. So you can continue to monitor that Q&A chat or Q&A function, and you'll be able to see if those answers are coming in writing. We will then take verbal public input in the order of people that have pre-registered to provide comments. So when you registered, if you said yes or maybe to providing comments, we will go ahead and we've identified them as they came in on the screen. We will ask you to use the raise the hand feature, and then we will unmute your mic. Once we get through all the pre-registered participants, we will open it up for anybody else that wants to provide public comment. I do want to note that public comment, once we get into the public comment section, we will not be answering questions verbally. So if you have a question as part of your comment, you will need to put that question in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, And again, we will then answer it in writing. We will not come back on and answer it verbally. So with that, we ask that people can go ahead and start asking your questions now or as they come up, and you could ask them all the way up to the end of the 2-hour period until 8 o'clock this evening. However, if you do not think of your question and later you think of it after this meeting, you can submit question and comments through email and mail. Both those addresses are on your screen. You will also be able to see this on the project website, and that is also in the chat feature. So you'll see a chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and that will include not only BLM website links, some other links as we go through. If you have technical difficulties, there's a phone number for Victoria Gadsden. She will be able to help you and you'll be able to call her. I also want to mention that public comment closes on January 7th, 2022. So please keep that date in mind. You'll need to get those public comments in for this project. We do record all public comments. They're all part of the public record or the project record. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. And last, this entire session is going to be recorded. It will be a video. There will be a link to that on the website. And all of your comments, again, are part of the project record. Okay, I think with that, we can go ahead and get the presentation started, and I'll turn it over to Whitney.
Thank you, Kenda. Good evening, everyone. On the screen, you will see a map of the proposed solar projects within the Pahrump Valley the BLM is currently processing in relation to the town of Pahrump and the Nevada-California state line. The Copper Ray Solar Project, highlighted on the map in blue striping, is the project we are discussing tonight. Two other projects, the Rough Hat Clark County project in purple and the Rough Hat Nye County Solar Project in red, will have additional public information forums. The Rough Hat Clark County project public information forums were held December 8th and 9th, and the recordings are available at the project website, which we'll include a link to in the chat. Also on the screen, you will see the location of the approved Yellow Pine Solar Project, shown in yellow, which was authorized with a record of decision in the fall of 2020. Copper Ray Solar LLC has submitted a right-of-way application for the Copper Ray Solar Project to utilize public land in Nye County for the construction, operation, and eventual decommissioning of a proposed solar facility and interconnection to the regional transmission system. The Copper Ray Solar Project request includes approximately 5,127 acres of BLM administered lands within the Pahrump Valley, southeast of the town of Pahrump, and 40 miles west of Las Vegas. The project proposal is a 700 megawatt solar photovoltaic power generating facility with battery storage on site. The photovoltaic modules installed on site would convert sunlight to direct current electricity, which is then collected and converted into alternating current electricity through a system of inverters. The on-site transformers would step up the alternating current electricity and deliver it to a proposed on-site substation. Once the electricity reaches the on-site substation, it is delivered off-site to the existing Game Bird substation via new generation tie lines. In addition, battery storage facilities will be constructed on site. The preliminary plan of development for the proposed project is available online at the project website, which we'll provide a link for in the chat. The map on the screen shows the proposed Copper Ray Solar Project as the red rectangle in the middle of the map, adjacent to the Clark-Nye County line. Copper Ray Solar LLC has proposed alternate generation tie lines for the project. Those alternates can be seen on the map as the yellow, blue, and orange dashed lines. The proposed generation tie lines run north and west of the project to the existing Game Bird substation northwest of the project area. Existing transmission lines and infrastructure would be utilized to transmit the electricity to the grid. This map shows the location of the proposed Copper Ray Solar Project in relation to local roads and streets within the Pahrump area, including Tacoma Springs Road, Brown Springs Road, Homestead Road, and Hafen Ranch Road. On the screen, you will see a flow chart outlining the application evaluation process for the Copper Rays Solar Project. The application evaluation process begins with the submittal of a solar project application. The application is then prioritized based on the regulations and involves interdisciplinary team review. This helps the BLM prioritize and process the solar application workload more efficiently. Those applications determined to be high priorities move into the solar application evaluation process. This application evaluation process involves public information forums and agency coordination. When the evaluation is complete, the BLM will determine whether to continue to process the application. If the BLM determines to continue processing, that is when the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, process would initiate, which includes environmental review, analysis, and public involvement. The public information forums for the Copper Rays project are part of the early stages of the solar application evaluation process. The BLM Southern Nevada District developed a prioritization process for solar project applications that focuses prioritizing applications with the fewest known resource conflicts for continued processing. The Southern Nevada District utilized this process to prioritize the 26 current applications and continues to use it as more applications are filed. In August 2020, the Copper Rays Solar Project was determined to be a high priority project due to low resource conflicts. In 2012, the BLM and Department of Energy issued the final programmatic environmental impact statement for the solar energy development in 6 southwestern states. This document provided information to improve efficiency and created processes to standardize the review of solar applications in a more environmentally responsible manner. The Copper Rays Solar Project application was submitted prior to October 28, 2011, which was the publication date for the supplemental document to the draft solar PEIS. As such, the Copper Rays Solar Project was considered a pending application under the solar PEIS. Therefore, the application is not subject to the decisions adopted by the document, and it is not subject to the variance process, although it is located within a variance area. The right-of-way regulations provide direction on renewable energy development applications on public lands. Applications for utility scale solar projects are evaluated on a case-by-case basis based on environmental considerations, public input, and coordination with federal, state, and local government agencies and tribes. Information provided by those parties, as well as the applicant, can be utilized when evaluating the appropriateness of an application. Currently, we are still in the early stages of processing the Copper Rays Solar Project application. Tonight's public information forum and the public input period that lasts until January 7th, 2022, provides an opportunity to have input on the Copper Rays Solar Project. Information gathered during the meeting and the input period will inform the application evaluation process and assist BLM in making a determination on whether to continue to process the application and begin NEPA. The application evaluation process is separate from the NEPA process and comes before. After the public information forums have concluded, we will continue to gather public input on the project until January 7th, 2022. The information we gather will be reviewed by the BLM authorized officer, who will make the determination on whether the project will move forward to the NEPA process. The determination on the Copper Rays Solar Project is anticipated in early 2022. Helpful input and information from you would include potential local concerns, opportunities, and barriers related to the proposed project. We would also appreciate input about the type of use within the proposed project area or resource concerns. Some examples can include types of recreational activities and opportunities that are conducted within the project area, resource concerns for wildlife, vegetation, visual resources, and any other local factors. Now I'll turn the meeting back over to Kenda, who will begin the question and answer session.
Thank you, Whitney. As Whitney mentioned, we're going to move into the question and answer section. We've seen a number of questions come in. So we will start responding to those verbally and in writing here in just a minute. But if you have not submitted a question yet, go ahead and look at the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You should be able to see it, and you can see it on screen here, what it looks like. If you hit that Q&A function, you'll be able to see a box that pops up. You'll be able to type your question in there and then hit send. Please remember only to type one question in at a time. That way we can answer your question and make sure that we get to each and every question. I also noticed that I do see raise the hand. So we are using the raise the hand feature once we move into the public comment section. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we'll talk about that here after we get through the Q&A portion. And again, bear with us. I also want to mention that we are trying to answer as many questions as we can live. So there will be some pauses as we go through, and you will see some of those questions come in writing. So I just wanted to let you know that it may seem like there's awkward pauses, but this is so we are making sure that each question is answered and we give our moderators time to get organized and we can get those over to Whitney. So just so you kind of understand what's going on, we'll go ahead and get started. And then we will get to the public input section after that. Okay, I think we have a couple that have come in. Whitney, let's go on and get to the first question that I see. And I have listed a question, and this person would like to know, what is the revenue that the BLM receives from leasing the public land?
So the BLM will calculate acreage rent on or before the date of the issuance of a right-of-way grant or lease. The BLM will charge acreage rent on an annual basis by calculating the annual acreage rent by multiplying the entire number of acres authorized in the right-of-way grant or lease by the appropriate per acre rate. BLM will also charge a megawatt capacity fee once generation of electricity starts on an annual basis. That megawatt capacity fee will be multiplied by the approved capacity to get the appropriate fee. We do have more information on our rent and megawatt fees, and we'll put those links in the chat. And then also, the BLM is currently seeking public input on draft guidance to promote the use of wind and solar energy on public lands. That input period lasts until February 2nd, 2022. The proposed update would reduce acreage rental rates and capacity fees for existing and new wind and solar authorizations on public land. Once this is finalized, the updated guidance will provide enhanced financial and regulatory predictability for solar and wind energy projects authorized on public land. And we do have more information and a link for that, and we'll post that in the chat if folks are interested in that information and providing input on that.
Thanks, Whitney. Okay, we see some other questions coming in, and I also see questions coming in that are separated. People are asking one at a time. So I just want to also say we do appreciate that. I know sometimes it seems cumbersome to ask every question separately per submittal, but it does help us because sometimes when we get a bunch in one paragraph, it's very hard to pull them apart. So I do appreciate everyone adhering to that. So thank you. Okay, Whitney, we've got another one. And the question is, this will not use the Trout Canyon substation.
That is correct. The Copper Ray Solar Project proposes to use the existing Game Bird substation.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm going to pause here for 1 second and make sure that we're getting these other, well, actually, see, lots going on. Again, thank you for bearing with us, but we do have another one that just came in. Whitney, who has allowed this to be so close to homes, schools, and the town of Pahrump?
So the applicant, Copper Ray Solar LLC, has identified and applied for the proposed project site. The BLM is currently considering the appropriateness of that application using the application evaluation determination process that we discussed earlier in the presentation. And that process is identified in the right-of-way regulations. So these current public meetings and public input period are a crucial piece of that application evaluation process and will inform BLM's decision on whether to continue processing and initiate environmental review or go to the National Environmental Policy Act process.
Great, thank you, Whitney. Okay, we have another one here, and this is about the tribes. So which Native American tribe will be consulted?
So BLM has initiated government-to-government consultation with the tribes for the Copper Ray Solar Project. Those tribes include the 29 Palms Band of Mission Indians, the Colorado River Indian Tribes, the Chumway Indian Tribe, Fort Mojave Indian Tribe, Las Vegas Paiute Tribe, the Moapa Band of Paiutes, and the Timbisha Shoshone Tribe. This has included both formal correspondence, meetings, and also site visits with tribal members.
Okay, so that does also a second question was by what method the BLM will reach out and communicate with the Native American tribes? So I think you answered that as well. So thank you very much. Okay. Give us 1 second again. We appreciate the questions that are coming in. Okay, Whitney, we have another one. Where would BLM deposit displaced tortoises?
So if the project is approved, desert tortoises would be impacted by the construction of the solar facility. The BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service work in coordination to reduce those impacts by requiring that tortoises be translocated prior to construction of the solar facility. The BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service designated the Trout Canyon and Stump Springs translocation areas that could potentially be used as recipient sites for tortoises from the Copper Rays project. Other measures to reduce impacts could include post-construction monitoring, health assessments, and treatment if needed. Additional specific measures would be developed in a desert tortoise translocation plan, and that would occur during the environmental review process if the application was given a favorable application evaluation determination.
Great, thank you very much. I have another question. Where will the power be shipped to?
So the project sponsor, Copper Ray Solar LLC, has indicated that a purchaser for the power proposed to be generated by the Copper Ray Solar project has not yet been identified. The Copper Ray Solar project proposes to interconnect with the Game Bird substation, which would allow power to be provided to the California Independent System Operator, or CAISO, and Valley Electric Association systems. The Copper Ray Solar LLC, there's more information in the preliminary plan of development, which we can post a link to in the chat that's on the project website.
Very good, thank you. Okay, thank you again, everyone. We're seeing more questions are coming in. I've also seen a couple attendees join while we've been going through Q&A. So I'll just pause for 1 second just to make sure that the people that have joined are aware that we are in the question and answer portion of the meeting. You can use the Q&A chat feature at the bottom of your screen. You're able to write in your questions, and we are trying to get to as many questions verbally as we can, but we also are doing questions in writing. So again, use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll go ahead and be answering them either written or verbally. I will also note, again, just a reminder to everyone that once we enter the public input section, so once we have answered the questions that are coming in during this portion, we will move on to public comment. If questions keep coming in and we're running out of time, we'll also move into public comment. But I want to note that we will not go back and answer those verbally. So as you get your questions, please go ahead and keep providing them in that Q&A chat feature. Okay, so we do see a number of questions coming in, so that is good, and we appreciate that. Very good participation this evening. So if you can give us 1 minute, I will go off just to make sure we're organized with what is coming in, and I will be right back. Okay, Whitney, what year would the equipment be disassembled?
I was having a mute button issues. So if the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination and goes through the environmental review process and is approved, it would be authorized for a term of 30 years with the option to renew. There are decommissioning procedures that are outlined in the preliminary plan of development, which is available at the project website. And then also, if the project does go through the environmental review process and it is approved, Copper Rays Solar LLC would be required to prepare a decommissioning plan that would require removal of facilities and restoration of the site.
Okay, Whitney, thank you very much. So we have a lot of questions coming in, so that is great for the participation and the people that have joined. So I want to thank you again for the questions that have come in. We are, again, they're coming in, so we're just making sure that we have them and we're answering them as many as we can live. So I do want to let everyone know we appreciate the questions and that active participation. But again, while it may seem awkward to go mute for a second, I just want to give everyone the opportunity to continue to providing questions. But if you can give us a minute, I will be right back. Okay, Whitney, we have a question that came in about water. So again, there's still some other topics, but let's talk about water right now. How much water will be required to maintain this project on an ongoing basis, including but not limited to ongoing washing of the solar panels that will be installed?
So Copper Rays Solar LLC has stated in their preliminary plan of development that the most probable source of construction and operations phase water for the proposed project would be water leased or purchased from either a public or private entity utilizing existing water rights. Right now, Copper Ray Solar LLC is working on a water use report and have not made determinations yet on the amount of water that would be needed for construction and ongoing operations. The Nevada Division of Water Resources is responsible for the allocation of water resources within the state of Nevada. And if the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination, the BLM will consider impacts from water use during the environmental review or the National Environmental Policy Act process. BLM considers water, both surface and groundwater, within the broader context of all resources under BLM administered lands and their interaction as they relate to BLM responsibilities.
Okay, thank you, Whitney. We have some other questions that are coming in now. So we have a bunch of them. So we are moving through them and trying to get to as many as we can. So again, bear with us. Okay, Whitney, we have another topic, and this is about dust. So how does the BLM propose that the applicant attempt to mitigate toxic dust?
So the design features identified during the environmental review or the NEPA process could include the health and safety programs that address reducing exposure to dust in areas, especially those endemic to the valley fever fungus. If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination, risks related to dust and mitigation measures would be analyzed, and mitigations would be developed through that NEPA process.
Great. Okay, thank you. We have another one that came in, and this is, so Whitney, has setting dispersed use standards, acres of solar per square mile, been considered to mitigate impacts on the desert environment and current uses or users, sorry?
When the BLM receives an application for renewable energy projects from a project sponsor, the application goes through the prioritization and the application evaluation process before initiating the environmental review or the NEPA process. Solar applications are examined on a case-by-case basis, and the environmental review process analyzes and discloses the potential impacts from proposed action and alternatives prior to a decision being made. In addition to the environmental review process, BLM would make efforts to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to resources that could result from the project if approved.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question for you. How many Mojave yuccas will be destroyed?
So we estimate approximately 49,000 cacti and yucca within the entire survey area of the project, which includes an estimated 38,000 in the project site and 11,000 within the Gentai. The predominant species found within the project site include Mojave yucca, Joshua trees, pencil cholla, golden cholla, hedgehog cactus, cotton-top cactus, and beaver tail cactus. Specific estimates of each species within the project area are not available at this time because botanical surveys are still ongoing and reports have not yet been finalized.
Great, thank you. See, we have another one. How would the applicant be required to restore the site? And how would the applicant restore the desert crust?
So if the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination, it would move through the environmental review process And if it is eventually approved, Copper Rays Solar LLC would be required to prepare a decommissioning plan, kind of similar to what we talked about in the earlier question, which would require both the removal of facilities and restoration of the site.
Thank you. We have one on roads. And the question is, which roads will be used for construction traffic? So
the Copper Rays Solar LLC will be constructing an access road off of State Route 160, which would be utilized to access the site. They anticipate that construction would take approximately 72 months, depending on the phasing of the project. Additional information on the project, including access and routes, and a more detailed schedule estimate can be found in the preliminary plan of development, which we posted to the project website. And I believe we put a link in the chat for that.
Great. I will also just remind those, I know we've had I see a couple additional attendees. I'll remind everyone that there is a chat feature at the bottom of the screen that does have a number of links to the BLM project website, as well as some other links and some other information. So make sure you do check that chat feature. Also, I do want to let everyone know, especially the people joining, we've had a number of questions come in. There's a lot of questions we are trying to get to, as many live. We will also have to be answering those in writing in order for us to keep moving through the meeting. I also have noticed that there are some people that are raising the hand. There's a raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen. I did want to remind everyone that we will be using that feature once we get into the public input section of the meeting. So just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Okay, with that, we can move on to the next question. Whitney, what would the BLM require of the applicant in terms of mitigating the over 5,000 acres of Mojave land being destroyed?
So if the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination, and we move into the environmental review or the NEPA process, types and alternatives for replanting of vegetation species within the project areas would be analyzed. During the environmental review process, the BLM would make efforts to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to vegetation within the project area. Mitigation measures have not been developed at this time. We are still in the early stages of the application processing. Currently, we are requesting information about potential impacts within the site, and that relevant mitigation during the environmental review process would be identified and addressed at that time.
Okay, thank you, Whitney. Appreciate getting through all of this, and as well as appreciate everyone that is participating. Very active Q&A, so this is very good. We have another question, Whitney. Will all mesquite be avoided?
So on the eastern edge of the project site and within the survey buffer of the site, a few of the large washes lead into some bottomland honey mesquite, and that is the mesquite bosque riparian habitat. It is unknown at this time how many mesquite would potentially be impacted by the proposed project, as botanical surveys are ongoing and reports have not been finalized. If the project does receive a favorable application evaluation determination and we proceed into the environmental review process, relevant measures to avoid, minimize, or mitigate potential impacts to those species would be considered.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have another one, another tribal question. Who specifically in the Native American tribes will be consulted? And what does consultation entail?
Sure. So like we stated, the BLM has initiated consultation with the Mojave Band of Paiutes, the Las Vegas Paiute tribe, the Timbisha Shoshone tribe, the Chemehuevi Indian tribe, the 29 Palms Band of Mission Indians, the Fort Mojave Indian Tribe, and the Colorado River Indian Tribe for this project. The specific procedures or protocols for how consultation proceeds and what that consultation look like is dependent on the BLM's relationship with each tribe. Generally, this consultation consists on a coordination between the BLM's authorized officer and the individual tribal governments to identify specific tribal concerns and work with the necessary individuals to address those concerns. These efforts are part of an ongoing relationship between the BLM and each tribal government.
Thank you. Again, we do have some questions coming in. I'll remind everyone that we will get to the public comment section here soon. We do have a number of people that pre-registered for public comment. So I know we will have to monitor the time a bit because we do want to make sure that we get to everyone's public comment, but we also want to get as many questions answered live as we possibly can. So again, please check that Q&A function. Okay, I'm going to go off screen for just a minute to make sure that we've got the questions that are coming in next, and I will be right back. Okay, Whitney. Another tribal question. Who is the BLM officer that will communicate with each Native American tribal government?
So for the Copper Ray Solar Project, which is located in the Pahrump Field Office, the Pahrump Field Office Manager would communicate with the tribal governments. They would be the authorized officer.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have a question. Whitney, we have a person that recently relocated to Pahrump from another state and is very concerned that this will drastically and negatively affect property values and home values with millions of acres. Why next to an existing town?
Sure, so thank you for your question. We strive to provide the best information. At this moment, we do not have an immediate answer for that question. If there is a favorable application evaluation determination made for the project, the BLM will continue processing through the environmental review process or the National Environmental Policy Act process. And that question would be analyzed during that process where we would do review and analysis for those issues.
Thank you. Okay, we have questions coming in. We are trying our best to get them all answered, and as well as we will be getting some of them in writing. We will at the top of the hour be moving into the public comment session just based on the number of people that pre-registered. We do want to get to everyone and make sure that we have time that everyone can provide public comments. Very good participation this evening. Again, we appreciate that. Okay, Whitney, how would the applicant be required to compensate Pahrump residents for the reduction in quality of life?
So the BLM does not have the authority to require that a project sponsor pay compensation to landowners.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is the BLM and or the solar company going to transplant yuccas and cactus after the botanical survey of the project gets approved?
So as we discussed, if the project does receive a favorable application evaluation determination and we go through the environmental review process, post-construction ground treatment types and alternatives would be analyzed. This could include leaving cacti and yucca in place within areas where grading is not required. The BLM's restoration plan states that cacti and yucca will be salvaged from temporary disturbance areas and replanted after construction in those areas.
Thank you, Whitney. Okay, we have a number of questions still coming in. So again, we're just getting those organized. Okay, Whitney. What positive effects will this project have on the Pahrump community?
So the Copper Solar project proposes to interconnect with the Gamebird substation, which would allow power to be provided to the California Independent System Operator and also the Valley Electric Associated Systems. And then there is more information in the plan of development for that we posted online.
Thank you. And while we are looking at, getting ready to prepare to answer a few more questions, I did want to remind everyone that, Whitney has mentioned the links to some of these websites. Again, that is in the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. It's next to the raise hand feature and the Q&A feature. So you can also make sure you check that and note those websites and those links. And again, we will, I see some hands raised. We'll get to those hands raised in just a minute when we get to the public comments section. Okay, Whitney, I have a question that a person came back and said that they felt that the question was not answered previously. And the question specifically is, how specifically would the applicant attempt to restore the desert crust?
So the BLM would work with the applicant to avoid, where appropriate, development in areas with biological soil crust. The loss of biocrust would be documented and analyzed as part of the environmental review process, should there be a favorable application evaluation determination made on the project. Typically, biocrust salvage is included in the restoration plan in temporary disturbance areas.
Thank you, Whitney. Okay, we're just going through to make sure that we have questions being answered right now. Again, we are trying to kind of organize to get moving into the public comment portion just because of the number of commenters that we know. And we want to make sure also that we allow a little time for people that may not have pre-registered but do have a public comment that they can ask the question, provide comment. So just give us 1 second and we will get there. Okay, Whitney. One question just came in. Why is this project so close to residential areas?
So the applicant, Copper Ray Solar LLC, identified and applied for the proposed project site. And BLM is currently considering the appropriateness of that application during this application evaluation process with these public meetings and the public input period that will help inform our determination on the project.
Okay, Whitney, what is the current BLM acreage rate for this area?
So that is something that we will have to determine and calculate out at a later date. We do not have that acreage calculation at this time, or the rental rate.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so that's another, I did want to mention that there are questions that we will want to get information, and we can type those in. So this is a good example of that, as well as we are getting close to the top of the hour, and we do have a number of people. We actually have some people that have, since we've gotten on, asked to speak. So we are also wanting to add those to the public comment section. So we're trying to do multiple things. So bear with us for just a second, but we will be moving on to that here very quickly. But again, as we mentioned, we will be continuing to answer questions in the Q&A chat. So please continue to ask those questions. Okay, Whitney, I've got one last question before we move on. Again, we're getting kind of winding down on time. Has a variance request ever been denied?
So on the BLM Southern Nevada District, we have not. I would like to clarify, though, that the Copper Rays solar project is actually not subject to the variance process and is not subject to the decisions in the solar PEIS. So this is following the application evaluation process that is established in the right-of-way regulations.
Okay, thank you. I think based on the questions that we the comments that we have coming in of the list of people, we will go ahead and move into that public comment section. So we'll go ahead and just give some guidelines and some information on how we're going to take public input. So input, as I've mentioned, will be accepted in order of registration online. Once your name is called, you can use the raise hand feature. We've seen some people using this, so that raise hand feature is at the bottom of your screen. If you are on the phone, and we do see there are a couple people on the phone, your raise hand feature can be activated using *9, then unmute and mute using *6. There is a 2-minute timer that will be displayed on your screen. It will show how much is remaining and will start winding down. So if you can please watch for that, and as you see it flash, know that the time is running out. As I mentioned, we will not be responding to comments verbally. So again, if you have questions in your comments, please put them in the Q&A. We will not come back and answer those questions. As I've mentioned, all input is very valuable and it will all be included in the project record. And again, this all is being recorded and will be on video. Okay, a couple guidelines I want to mention, and then let's go ahead and get started so we can get to everybody. As we've mentioned, we do want to hear from everyone, but because we have a lot of people that want to comment, we want to be respectful and try to get to everyone. So please adhere to that 2-minute time clock. Please also refrain from profanity. We value everyone's comments. However, if guidelines are not followed, we will have to mute your microphone and we will have to move on to the next person. So let's go ahead and get started. I will call out your name. I will ask you to use the raise the hand function. And then our moderator will unmute you. And you should be able to see the clock starting and you should be able to talk. So with that, let's go to our first person. And I will say, please understand if I mispronounce your name. I'm not trying to, I want to respect everyone's name, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first person that pre-registered is Carol Swanson. Carol, can you raise your hand? Okay, we do not see a hand raised, or we do not see Carol on. Just wanting to make sure that she's not the one on the phone. Okay, next person is Crystal DePietro. Crystal, are you on? Okay, we're not seeing Crystal either. Giving it 1 second. Okay, we'll move on. And again, we can always go back. So please let us know if we've just used the raise the hand feature. If we've moved on, we will go back and get to you. Okay, the next person is Michael Pancratz. Michael, I think you're on. I think I saw your name. Would you like to make a comment? If you can hit the raise the hand button at the bottom of your screen. We do see you on. Okay. Okay, Michael, we're going to move on. I don't see you raise your hand, so you may have decided not to speak. Okay, the next person is Robert Adams. Okay, see you raised your hand. We're going to unmute. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Okay, am I unmuted?
You are, thank you.
Okay, just to follow up on the comment before that there's just too much public land. These solar developers are just asking for too much public land that's too close to Pahrump. That it should be further out, and a way to mitigate the impacts on both the current users, people that recreate in public land and the desert, would be to approach it the same way we do with the water wells, of how many per square mile. We've got several thousand acres that are going to be tied up here right next to the right east and south of Pahrump, that the smaller projects would be much better and disperse them separately, you know, that way there'd be room between them. Because what the developers are asking for is pretty much to take up the entire desert surrounding the east and south sides of Pahrump, and that's just not fair to the citizens of Pahrump, and it's just going to be devastating for nature. And conclude my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. We'll go ahead and reset the clock. Okay, I want to make sure the next person is Judy Bamfram. I think that's correct, but Judy, did you want to make a comment? Judy, I see your hand raised. You should be unmuted.
Now I'm unmuted. Yeah, I just want to say the same thing that I said at the Rough Hat hearing and the Green Link hearing, and that is that there's been basically no or incredibly poor planning that's gone into this. And I think it's really clear from the questions that to offer up public land before you've done botanical surveys, human surveys, indigenous surveys, figuring out if there's really a need for all this electricity at this point, you know, if where it's supposed to go, the other end is actually doing their part before they start, you know, taking public lands, is just really unimpressive and really awful. That that there's basically, that this is a plot by plot, I mean, you know, sort of piece by piece, case by case, proposal by proposal process with absolutely no big picture thinking. It's so embarrassing. And again, it's not good stewardship of the land. So I really invite you to rethink your process. You know, I don't know who it serves, but it's not serving us, the public. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, the next person is Monica Nasser. Monica, can you raise your hand if you would like to speak? Okay, we don't see Monica on. I'm going to give it one more second just in case she is on the phone. Okay, the next person is Mark Duval. Mark. Okay, I don't see Mark Duval either. What about Robert Frederick? Ronald, I apologize. Ronald Frederick? Okay, I don't see that either. Okay, next, John Bellick. Okay, not seeing him either. So I'm just, again, giving it a second just to make sure that we're being cognizant of time and people allowing them to raise their hand. Naomi Gubramariam. Naomi. Okay, we're going to go to the next 10 commenters. Again, I'll mention that if I did pass you and you are on and we missed your raise the hand feature, please just raise your hand and let us know and we will get back to you. Okay, the next person. Okay, Tina Dixon. Okay, we're going to unmute you. I think you're on.
Okay. Hi. I have a question about water usage for this project. So are we able to ask questions or just make comments?
So during this portion, this is a public comment portion. So you're welcome to provide comments and ask your questions verbally during the time. But if you have a specific question you want responded to, if you can use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, great. My understanding is that this project is going to use a lot of water, and that will potentially impact those of us who are on wells. So I haven't heard any of that being addressed. So I just wanted to get it into the record that we have limited water. I'm also wondering why a California company would come to Nevada. There's plenty of desert in California that they could erect whatever solar things that they need. And I guess that's pretty much all I have. And then just for time's sake, my husband is standing here so he can make his comments if that's okay.
Yes, if you could stick to that, the last 52 seconds, that would be great.
Well, I'm the next person in line.
Oh, great. So we can do, what we'll do is if you're okay with it, we'll go ahead and just start over with the 2 minutes.
Yeah. That's fine.
And go ahead. Thank you. I appreciate you correcting me on that one.
Oh, I just want people to give some thought and maybe do some research and find out ahead of time. My wife brought up the questions of the impact on the water table and how that's going to impact individual homes in this area with their water. Are they going to have to re-drill wells and things like that because of the amount of water that they'll be using in that project? We really need to consider her question of, why a California company is wanting to build their solar farm here to send power to California instead of building it in California. And I think we as residents here who live here and have our homes here and business here need to really do some research and make sure we're becoming active in finding out who's making money on this and where that money's going and who stands to benefit from some of the problems that arise because of this location. And again, why is it going to be? It's going to impact front side. It's going to impact all the other big businesses around here, as well as anybody else, just from the increased construction traffic, the hassle that's going to cause. And I know that somebody's going to be making money from it. We just need to look and see who's making those decisions and how that's going to affect the rest of us, not just now, but 10 years from now. And is it going to be worth that for the majority of us here? So it doesn't sound like a great idea for me that we would consider this in general and specifically where they want to do it and how they want to go about it. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you for your comment. I also appreciate you watching the time and finishing up your comment at the end. Okay, it looks like the next speaker may have not wanted to speak. Robin Armstrong, Tom Bressler. Actually, the next person is Tom Bressler. Sorry, I want to make sure that we get to everyone. I'm going to go back. Tom Bressler, looks like you raised your hand. We'll unmute you. I think you could go ahead.
Am I good to go?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Yeah, looking at the plan of development for the Copper Ray Solar project at section 1.2.2.2, where it talks about the power market and project benefits, which is a question I asked of what benefit it is for Pahrump. And in there, it points out that one of the benefits is they're going to be able to sell this electricity back to California for their renewable portfolio. I got out of California just because of the environment there. I come here, I fell in love with the desert, looking at it, and now I don't understand why I got to look at 10 square miles or more of solar panels to support California and their lack of electricity that they have. I don't know why we have to pay for that here. When we left California, now I got to look at it. I mean, long after I'm dead, it'll still be there. And it's just too much. I agree with Daniel on this 100%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So number 4, Robin Armstrong, I don't think wishes to speak anymore. So we're going to move on. If you change your mind, please just use the raise a hand feature. Next one is Robert Linza. See if not seeing you on here. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. But again, please raise your hand if you are on the phone. Okay, Don Hertz is next. Okay, Susie Hertz. Okay, I see you raise the hand. We're going to go ahead and unmute you if you would like to speak. You may need to unmute your mic on your side as well. The unmute button is at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You'll have to hit that.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My comments have to deal with the water requirements. I was the one who asked the question, and I'm terribly concerned that not only with the water question, but anything else here that has been asked this evening, this entire project has been even considered without you having enough information to make a reasonable determination as to whether this is a realistic project or not. The entire region here is an environmentally fragile, limited water resource area. I think it's inappropriate and irresponsible to propose solar generation projects in such an area of such limited resources. You propose to approve this project and other projects which we know will require large volumes of water in both construction and maintenance. Yet we know the areas proposed are in areas of known limited water resources, as other people have commented. It seems to me to be a totally irresponsible action on the part of BLM and the citizens and against the citizens of Pahrump and the surrounding Nye and Clark counties areas. When we've asked about negative impacts to Pahrump, its citizens, loss of property values, loss of quality of life, devastation to nature, wildlife, and resources, you state you'll consider all of this after you approve consideration of this and other projects. This is a great waste of taxpayer dollars. And I remind you that this land is owned by the people of the United States, Nevada, Nye County, and therefore my spouses, myself, and many of my neighbors do not want this project within the Pahrump Development Plan area in any way, shape, or form. If you get anything from this meeting, please understand the citizens do not want solar generation projects in any area visible or easily reachable during normal recreational life, when there are tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of acres and miles of BLM land that you can manage and are far from populations that could be utilized instead of putting this up against an existing community and having a massive negative impact on our community.
Thank you very much for your comment. Okay, the next person is Joyce Berishman or Berishman. Joyce, are you on? I don't see Joyce's hand raised, but I see the next person, which is Mike Berishman. Mike, are you ready? You should be able to speak. I think you can go ahead.
Am I on?
You are.
I wanted to speak too.
Ladies and gentlemen of Nye County, nobody wants to live near a nuclear power plant such as San Onofre, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl. Nobody wants to live near a hydro plant such as the Tennessee Valley Authority. Nobody wants to live near a coal burning plant. Nobody wants to live with a wind farm in their backyard, such as they do in Texas. Nobody wants a solar farm in their neighborhood. This is not moving next door to an airport then complaining about the noise. All power plants have environmental fallout that affect the inhabitants. We are wasting our time with having meetings with the vampires who want to suck the lifeblood out of our aquifers and leave droppings of tar. We need to be involved with our councilmen, commissioners, governors, mayors, and attorneys who are fighting against the destruction of our homes, schools, playgrounds, human and wildlife. The more we negotiate with the BLM and solar projects, the more we play into their hands. People of Pahrump, I implore you, call, email, write all who are involved with fighting this land and power grab for trinkets and beads at our expense. And vote against anyone who is for it. It's the only thing they understand. And that's it. I'm done.
Thank you for your comment. I did want to go back. Does Joyce Berishman also would like to provide a comment? I just want to make sure that we did not miss her.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I do agree with Daniel and Susie Hertz as well. I am not for this project. It's the wrong thing for the citizens of Pahrump. It's too close to the town. We don't have enough water. It's going to create dust, valley fever, heat. We're going to lose animals and other important things that we have in the desert that people enjoy. This is our land. It's not solar land, and it is much too close to the town of Pahrump. and this project needs to be halted, and all solar projects around the town of Pahrump need to be stopped. That's how I feel. And please understand this has to be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, we've got another speaker. Shrikant Madala. Hoping I pronounced that right. We do not see a hand raised, so we will move on to the next 10 commenters. Okay, the next person is Sharon Hatter. Sharon, are you on? Okay, the next one, Julia Kitamy. Julia, I don't see you either. Okay, third, Michael Fender. I think we saw, there we go. We'll go ahead and unmute you. You want to go ahead? You'll need to use the unmute feature.
I'm working on it. There we go.
Thank you.
Hi there. Well, my comments this evening are pretty straightforward. I want people to understand that 40% of the land in Nevada is managed by the BLM, and that's a little over 40%. And in California, the same thing applies, but that's right around 15%. Those are just stats that the public can pick up. The bottom line is, as residents of Pahrump and the surrounding communities, we, the county, the town, and the residents need to be in some way the benefactors and not fixtures for these projects. The X on the map that relates to where these projects can be built does not mean they have to be built. There are no real ordinances, rules, and codes as to how, where, and when these projects could proceed. You got to place in mind here that if you put one of these up there, build one solar farm, we could end up with 2. We could end up with 10. Instead of 18,000 acres, it could be 180,000 acres. Well, that might be a little bit of exaggeration on land usage. But if that's the case, so here again, when you talk about water, some of these outfits are going to use upwards of 500 acre feet of water per year. And if you build 4 of them, how much is that? That's over 200. That's about 2 million acre feet of water per year. That's just during the construction phase. So keep in mind, folks, this is not a healthy way to do things, because we're going to end up turning our nice valley here into a really nice solar desert, and it's not going to be very livable. Anyway, thanks for my time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your comment, and I appreciate you adhering to the clock and watching that. Okay, next person is Matthew Giltner. Do we see Matthew Giltner? We're looking, just one sec. We don't see it. Okay, we do have a Matthew without a last name, so I just am giving it 1 second. If Matthew wants to come on, you can use the raise the hand feature. Okay, we will move on. Ryan Gallagher. Ryan Gallagher. Do we see Ryan Gallagher? Okay, I see Ryan Gallagher may not want to speak. I'm going to give it 1 second. You can use the raise the hand feature. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on. If you change your mind, go ahead and just raise your hand. The next one is Kevin Emmerich. Okay, we're going to go ahead and unmute you, Kevin. Okay, you should be able to go.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. My name's Kevin Emmerich. My group is Basin and Range Watch. We're following a lot of these projects. You gave this high priority status over a year ago, and it was based on what you call low conflicts. And many of your low conflicts are based on bogus biological surveys. You said in this presentation there are 49,000 cacti and yuccas. I think that's off. A yellow pine solar project, 3,000 acres, 2,000 acres smaller than this one, had 93,000 Mojave yuccas. I believe there's an undercount here. Somebody asked what happens to the yuccas. They're called forest products by BLM. They get destroyed. Even if there's 49,000, you cannot salvage all of those. And they don't grow back. Google it. Dr. Rebecca Hernandez did a study. When you mulch them, they're gone. Also, you said you don't know if you'll avoid the mesquite. Mesquite are a phreatophyte, a wetland species. Why not? Why not avoid a really rare resource in the desert? That's ridiculous to replace those with solar panels. Desert tortoise surveys were done in a record-breaking drought year by this particular company's biological consultant, Newfields. And they were done with what BLM said was a 64% confidence interval. Those need to be done again. I actually asked you in the question and answer if those would be resurveyed. You did not answer that. What happened on yellow pine, you undercounted, you got 139, predicted 53. And then when they moved them in April, record-breaking drought, 30 were killed by hungry badgers. Really bad screw up. Let's not keep doing this with all these other solar projects. Thank you.
Thank you for adhering to time and thank you for your comment. Okay, the next person is Sky McLean. Sky, if you could raise your hand. Giving it a second. Okay, we're going to move on. Sharon Salter. Sharon, okay, I see your hand raised. We're going to go ahead and unmute you. Okay, Sharon, you will need to unmute your mic in the lower left-hand corner. There you go. You can go ahead.
Thank you. It's Shannon, actually. But yeah, this project is an absolute absurdity. And I've hiked a lot on the site. It's really, really biodiverse. There's, as you said, about 49,000 yucca and other cactus. And it's home to so many animals, kit foxes, tortoises, coyotes. And I really think that what's happening or what's proposed to happen here in the Pahrump Valley is a form of ecocide. I mean, it's definitely a form of ecocide. I don't think that because this is a completely intact ecosystem, which is now starting to be ripped apart by the Yellow Pine Solar Facility. And I believe it needs to stop with that. I think we should recognize that we've made a mistake with that and not proceed with the other 4 projects that are proposed so that the whole valley is not totally destroyed. I really consider it a form of ecological terrorism because so many forms of life are being completely decimated and it's impossible to get them back. As Kevin said, the yucca do not grow back. The BLM proposes to have the applicant mow the landscape, but it's sort of pointless to do that because the yucca are going to be dead. I think it's like a cop out and it's just a way for the BLM to make it look a little bit better, but it's really not better. I think that the American public stands to lose a huge resource here. Again, of course, this has been identified as a low conflict area, but as Kevin pointed out too, there's, this is like a wetlands in the desert. And so I think to do this would be a form of ecocide and ecological terrorism and assault on our Mojave Desert. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and adhering to the time and watching that. Okay, Antonio Gallo is next. Antonio, I don't see your hand raised. We're just going to check here just to make sure. Antonio, we do see you if you would like to raise your hand. Okay, we can always come back if you would like to speak. We'll move on though to Michael Long. Okay, you should be able to speak now. There you go.
Thank you. Hi, I'm a recent relocated from another state in which we had a significant amount of wind farms, which caused significant declines in the value of homes, farms, and the accompanying cities and towns that are around those. And those have a pretty short shelf life too, because they're not even recyclable. I moved to Pahrump because I wanted to be out away from everything else. I didn't want to be in Vegas. I wanted to be out in the nature and I wanted to have some nice and peace and quiet. Now I find out within 6 months after I moved here, there's going to be this big solar array. And the more I research it, and I am pretty conservative, but now I'm realizing that I am beside myself. I go to Mojave, Utah for Easter Jeep Safari every year, and we are fined and we can be charged with citations just for stepping on the crust there. And yet this entire desert needs to be decimated by a contractor that's going to sell this off to another state and not benefiting any of the residents or anybody in the state of Nevada, from what I understand. And the questions that have been asked over and over and over throughout this session have been just, the answers have been doublespeak. We don't have an answer. We don't know. I am just beside myself, and so many people have made statements and comments prior to me. I'm even more frustrated now, realizing that this could be the home that I wanted to build my forever home in. And in my commute to Las Vegas, I'm just supposed to look at a whole bunch of mirrors of solar farm, knowing that all of the entire ecosystem under that has been destroyed and will never come back. And then there's homes that I've looked at that I've been told, don't buy that home because the well needs to be re-drilled because the water table is so low. There's not enough water for the residents that are in Pahrump now, in addition to all the other houses that are being built. And then you want to throw this solar farm out here? This is absolutely inappropriate, and it's a complete disrespect to the citizens, and it's a misuse of our BLM land. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, and again, appreciate you adhering to the time. Okay, we're going to move on to the next 10 commenters. Okay, Mike Dyer. Mike, if you can raise your hand. Did you see him? Okay, we do see you. Give you a second if you want to raise your hand. Okay, we do not see a raise the hand feature. So at this point, this does conclude the speakers that pre-registered or identified that they wanted to speak prior to the meeting. We will give it some time and continue to answer questions, so you can use the Q&A feature. But we also will be watching to see if anybody else raises their hand. So I'm going to give it a minute. I'm going to go off, give it a little bit of time. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and close out, but I'll give it a little bit of time just to check. Okay, we are not seeing anyone else that wishes to speak. I will go ahead and open it up to anybody that has already spoken. If you would like to provide another comment, we can reset the clock and try to get to as many of those as we can. Because it doesn't look like anyone that has not spoken yet actually is not raising their hand. So again, we'll give it another couple seconds. Okay, we do have another person raising their hand. Kevin, I see that you've raised your hand. Do you want to go ahead? We'll unmute you. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, thank you once again. Again, on this low conflict, you can actually by the Code of Federal Regulations, reevaluate the prioritization process of the solar project. And as pointed out, the surveys were done in such a dry year. You have one avenue right there, the Endangered Species Act, to reevaluate that into a high conflict area. And then you could put that into a low priority status. You can actually reevaluate the high priority status and turn that into a low priority status. But, you know, this just isn't about desert tortoises, it's about the people. It's about their water.
Kevin, it seems like there may be some technical difficulties with your microphone. You cut out. You dropped off, so I'm not sure if you are still on. It looks like you have a minute left, so we will give it a second. And okay, if you can raise your hand if you'd like to continue, so we can unmute you. Okay, we're gonna go.
I don't know where I got cut off. I can say you have several avenues to reevaluate that priority status. And like I said, you issued high priority in August of 2020. That is a public process because anybody can appeal it. And often when you issue low priority, a renewable energy company will challenge that and appeal. But it's not just limited to them. Any citizen can do it. So as a public process, you can reevaluate the prioritization, go back and put Copper Raid as a low priority project. And you know what? You're going to solve a lot of issues because I did not hear one comment supporting this project. People hate this. People do not want their public land crashed by these solar boondoggles. Please stop it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and adhering to that time. And I appreciate that you were able to get back on. Okay, we are looking like there are no additional questions that have come in. I don't see anyone else's hand raised. I'm going to give it another minute. I will identify or make sure everyone is aware that we're at 7:35 right now. So we will remain online until 8 p.m. So if you, if we do close out, I do see one more person, so we will get back to that. But just so everyone is aware, you can come back on and ask a question or come back on and raise your hand, and we will take additional comments up to that 8 o'clock time period. But Michael Long, it looks like you've raised your hand. We'll go ahead and unmute you. Okay. You can unmute your mic in the left-hand corner of your screen.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I used all 2 minutes earlier, and my passion and frustration with this particular project is unfettered by time, but that's a limitation that we have for this venue. Water table is a big issue. There's no way for us to account for how much water is under Pahrump. And if you talk to any well driller, they're all telling everyone I've tried to get a bid on drilling a well has told me to go an additional 50 to 100 feet beyond where they're anticipating the water will be, because they do not know when this water table will dry up. And then we're going to bring this project in that's going to take an unknown amount of water, because they're just guessing at how much water they're going to use. We cannot afford that as a town. Absolutely cannot, especially with the record droughts that we're having. And then in addition to the fact that there's no way to assess how this will affect the values of the homes and properties in Pahrump, because people come out to this area because it's a serene place to be. Tens of thousands of acres of solar panels is not serene. And that's not somewhere that anyone's going to want to raise their family or retire looking out off their back deck into a bunch of solar panels. That's not a very comfortable and serene place to live your life. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, I also will remind everyone that this entire presentation, the entire meeting is being recorded. The BLM website, project website link that's in the chat. We will be posting the video or a link to that video here. Give us a day or so, and that link will be live, and you will be able to see the video. So you will be able to go back and listen to public comments and the questions that were answered. So I did want to remind everyone of that while we are giving it another minute to make sure that no one else has any questions or no one else has any comments. So we'll give it a minute to see if anyone else wants to use the weight raise. Okay, we do have one. Shannon Salter. Shannon, if you want to go ahead. Okay, so you unmute, go right ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the BLM should definitely reconsider the priority status of this. You know, considering the desert tortoise debacle at Yellow Pine, how 30 of the tortoises removed were eaten by badgers at the Stump Springs ECEC, which is the same place that you're proposing, the BLM is proposing to put tortoises from the Copper Rays solar facility. That's just like completely absurd, and it's an outrage, really. And it would almost be laughable, you know, like if it was funny, we would have to laugh. But it's just completely an absurdity. You know, the other thing is just the way that this will affect the people that live in Pahrump. I mean, it would basically devastate the town and make it a place where nobody wants to live, and a place where people don't want to visit either. Like, I'm a resident of Las Vegas, and I always come to Pahrump, just like the previous commenter said, for the serenity of it. It's a beautiful countryside place, and this would completely change the character of the town forever. And I really can't imagine anybody wanting to come there or live there. So it's for those reasons, and I mean for others too, but just for those particular reasons, that the desert tortoise situation at Yellow Pine was such a debacle and so mismanaged, and they found so many more than they anticipated, and then so many of them died. And then the fact that Pahrump residents have so many concerns about their quality of life being, you know, pretty much ruined, and not to mention their water table that's already under stress, potentially getting even lower. So I think like just for those two reasons alone, there's plenty of reasons for the BLM to reconsider the priority status. And I think it would be really unjust and odd if they didn't. Thanks.
Thank you, Shannon. We appreciate your comment and adhering to that time. Okay, we see another question has come in. We are answering that, trying to get that answered. I'm going to give it another minute for anyone to use the raise the hand feature. And if anyone has provided comment previously, you are welcome to provide an additional comment. We have a little under 20 minutes left in the meeting, so we do have some time. So I'm going to go off, leave it, give it a minute. We'll try to make sure we get everything answered. No more questions come in or no more hands are raised. If that happens in the next couple minutes, and then we will do a quick closeout, and again, remain online until 8 p.m. So bear with us for another couple minutes, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've not seen anyone with the raise the hand function. I do see a couple more questions coming in. So we will be answering those questions in writing. So I want to make sure everyone knows that those questions are in writing. I do see another commenter coming, so we will go ahead and get to that person. Just 1 second, Susie. Susie Hertz, I see that your hand is raised.
Hi.
Susie, there you go.
I forwarded a question asking how many actual projects there are that have been begun to be evaluated in the Nye County area. I'm aware of about 4 to 6 of them, and I haven't lived here and been very involved for very long. But I find it really peculiar that where these proposed projects are at the town of Pahrump and some others in northern Nye County as well, where there are populations of people. I've made the drive between Baker, California and Pahrump untold dozens of times. And in those 60 miles or 70 miles worth of BLM managed lands, there are little to zero population and oodles of open space. So it's really hard for me to comprehend how the intelligent people of the BLM could decide to entertain projects that absolutely impact populations and their environments versus hundreds of miles of open space where there is absolutely no human being that could be negatively impacted by such a project. And that's not with any disrespect to the environment and nature itself, but logic aside of anything else would tell you there's no reason for you other than money to put and propose a project next to a populated environment. Human beings have already told you this is a viable space, but it doesn't mean it's a viable space to take and strip and destroy the environment and the resources that are there. We have hundreds of thousands of other open miles of uninhabited areas that could well be utilized. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment and adhering to the time. Okay, I don't see any additional hands, but again, we'll give it a couple more minutes. We still have 15 minutes left of the meeting. I do see a couple last questions are being answered right now. See, we'll give it another minute. If anyone has any comments, we're watching the raise the hand feature. If you want to go to the next slide. So we'll oh wait, we do have another raise the hand. Let's get to that. So Tom, if you want to, we're going to go ahead and unmute you. If you want to go ahead and start. If you can.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. I'd like to get back to where the money goes to. Looking under where you told us to go under the power marketing benefits, they only mentioned Nevada once. They talk about construction jobs, which it's hard to find people to work right now anyway. And we have tons of construction going on in the area with all these new houses. But they constantly bring up California. They talk about California independent system operator where they can sell this solar power back to California and it'll be sold at a prime rate. So that's where the money is, I believe. And there's no benefit to Pahrump and or Littleton, Nevada on this. So that's the only comment I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, we have still over 10 minutes left. I see that questions are still coming in, and so we're definitely responding to those as we are moving into the last 10 minutes of the evening. Go ahead and give it another minute. I do want to also say that I know the BLM appreciates all of the participation. We've had an active meeting with a lot of questions and a lot of commenters. So we do appreciate all the public input. And I do want to remind everyone, this is part of the project record. If you are thinking of questions and comments and things that you would like to say to the BLM, please make sure that you check the email address, and you can mail in like a comments letter to the mailing address that we posted. We're going to go to that again here in a minute. It's also on the BLM website. As we mentioned a couple times, this is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and look at that. Give us a couple days to get that posted, but you can go visit the project website. Okay, I do not see any more raise the hands, but again, I want to give it another minute. I think that with the active participation, I want to make sure we get to everything. I see one more questions come in. We're wrapping up questions too. So again, we have time. We have about 10 minutes left, so we will keep responding. Again, we're going to keep everything open until 8 p.m. I will also note, and again, I know we've said this a number of times, but just to make sure everyone gets it on their calendars or in their minds, public comment is going to close on this project on January 7th, 2022. With the holidays here, that's probably faster approaching than I would like it to come. So make sure that you are aware of that. Okay, as questions come in, again, we are going to have to close out. I want to make sure everyone is aware that if we don't get to questions, it looks like we're trying to get through them all, but if we don't get to everyone's questions, we will be responding to them. Emails associated with your registration will be used to make sure that we are getting you the answer. And again, you can always email additional questions, as we've talked about at that email address that we posted. Okay, I'm going to give it another minute, and then we will probably get close to closing out. But again, keeping us on our toes. We'll keep watching for that raise the hand feature. But I'll go off for about 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, we are not seeing any raise the hands. There are a couple questions that are coming through. Again, as I mentioned, we will either respond to them tonight, or we will provide a response to emails that you used in registration. So please realize that we are trying to get to everything, but we are getting close to the top of the hour. And I do want to give our BLM field manager an opportunity to provide a closing. Again, we really thank you for the participation. It's been an active meeting and very, very good. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, just one second. Nicholas, we have one more commenter coming on, and we'll let that, we'll give this one more, and then we'll move to close out. Okay, the last commenter will be Judy. Judy, we're going to go ahead and unmute you if you want to go ahead and There you go.
Right. Yeah, I'll just ask the question that I posted. I'm concerned about all letters and comments being made available to the public. Are the transcripts from all the hearings, like in Pahrump, available as well? And are all the documents, related to the project between the developers and BLM made available? How transparent is it? Because I know the process is not that there's something planned, there's no RFP that they respond to. So there's a lot of back and forth going on. So are all those documents public?
Thank you for your comment. Written questions that are coming in, we will be, again, as I mentioned, we will be responding to these as quickly as we can, or we will be following up via email with the email that you used in registration. Okay, we're getting to the end. We'll go ahead to the next. We don't see anyone else. Again, we will continue, but I will go ahead and note that on the screen, you will see all the email addresses, the web link, and again, the note for closing of the public comment period. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and have Nicholas, the BLM field manager, do a quick closeout. But again, a reminder that we are here and we are going to remain online until 8 p.m. So there's about another 6 minutes. But again, I do want to respect everyone's time that's on the call and people that have stayed with us for the 2 hours. Again, thank you. Okay, Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you, Kenda, and thanks for your work in managing this meeting. Thanks to each of you guys that provided your comments and providing your questions. These really do help us make better decisions. All of you guys that have those questions or comments that you may have that come up between now and January 7th to get those submitted. The information on how to submit those comments is on the screen. And again, we'll stay open till 8 o'clock, but I just want to say thanks for a great meeting and all the work that you guys did. Thanks.
Thank you all. And it's 7:55 now. So again, we will stay open for another 5 minutes. You'll see me pop back on a couple times. And again, we are continuing to work through questions, or we will be providing those answers via email. Okay, I'm going to pop back off and we will stay open for the next 5 minutes.